Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody doing out there today? Appreciate you stopping by and taking a look at my video. Anybody from around the world, wherever you come from, so we have Anatoly Karpov. Anybody who watches my chess channel knows that I speak all kinds of different languages and everything. So, of course, I'm going to say magandang umaga to my people from the Philippines. Kumusta na? And I got a new phrase that I wanted to say. Sana ay mayos ang lahat, which I'm trying to say, hopefully all is well. So hopefully that's the way you say it. Masaya Akong Makita Kang Muli, Maraming Salamat Po, Sa, Nananud, yes, Ing, a King Maga video. Appreciate you guys coming by, stopping by. If I have anybody that's watching from Russia, because they want to see Anatoly Karpov, privyet to you, spasibo. Appreciate you coming, stopping by, taking a look at my video. So that is hello, privyet, and spasibo is thank you in Russian. So appreciate you stopping by. This is a pretty classical game. I've seen it covered quite a few times on YouTube, but I figured I'll put my own little spin on it. It's not anybody's personal game, so I don't really have to worry about stepping on anybody's toes. For anybody who are requesting games from fellow YouTubers, maybe Roderick Nava, Gotham Chess, Hikaru, anybody like that, that actually does show their own games for their own memorable purposes. I make sure that I don't do those same games because I don't want to pull anybody's personal game, from their page and redo it. I just kind of feel like that's a little disrespectful. So when you guys are asking me to make videos, please make sure that it's not somebody's a YouTuber's personal game that they played. That's a little personal to them, because I will not do those games, unless I get the permission from the person. Unless they're fine with me doing it, then I'll go ahead and do that. I don't see me really talking to any of these YouTubers right now, but if I do, I'll be able to, they can just go ahead and give me the okay. And if I do get that, I don't have a problem, putting my own little analysis on there and stuff like that. But there's certain things you can, and can't do. So that's just something I don't do as of now. So anything else is pretty much fair game. Any old games, any way classic games, I can definitely do that. I don't have a problem doing this. Anatoly Karpov and Eugene Torre are not YouTubers. So, I mean, there's no problem with me doing any of their games. Now, I did have a shout out. So I have Jacob Manantan. Yeah, I think I might have said that right. But he wanted me to give you a shout out. So I appreciate you stopping by, man. I appreciate you watching all my content and everything. And, I got you on the shout out. Also, I had Mark, that was asking me about, 1800s chess.com guy, watching some stuff, watches me, watches Hikaru, watches Roderick Nava. There was a book that I mentioned. I was mentioning in games. This book right here, some of you guys may be familiar with it. This is kind of like the Bible for chess players. Jeremy Silman. So it's Silman's complete in-game course. And as you can see, this is about almost a 600-page book. It's a thick one. I haven't even gone all the way through the entire thing. Let me put this back in my library. But basically, it is kind of the go-to. There's some Jeremy Silman stuff. There's a lot of different stuff from a lot of different authors. They have the Mark Dvorskys, if you're just really into just a complete in-game manual. But one of the big differences in chess strength by different chess players is their ability to play in games. Because you can play the opening really well. You can play tactically nice in the middle game, and then mess around and mess up a theoretical in game, and now you're drawing or even losing. So you have to be strong in every aspect of the game. So in games is something that people don't really want to look at. They don't really want to spend any time on. So, that is something that I would suggest you focus on. But if you guys are ready, spend 4 minutes. I'm going to try to be quick with the game, but this is a very classical game. It's taken from the 1976 Manila chess tournament. And I'm not sure, but I think that's a tournament they play every year. But without any further ado, from what we already had, appreciate you guys hanging around with me for this long. But yeah, if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and take a look at this game. All right, so we have E4. We have C5, knight to F3, knight to C6. We got D4, pawn takes D4, knight takes D4, knight to F6. We have knight to C3. We have D6. We have bishop to G5. And so we have what is called, it's the Sicilian Defense Open, classical Richter-Rauser variation. So that's a long one, right? But you know, as you guys see before, you know, if I take you back a little bit, you know, as I was telling you guys before, knight to f3 is almost always what you're going to see with the Sicilian, and most often you'll see d6. A little bit less so. It's not like it's not played ever. This is probably like the second best move. You know, it's played considerably less, but it's still played very highly at every level of the game. So that's where you have that. And so, you know, d4 is going to come, and you know, you're going to trade pawns, get your knight in the center. Knight's usually going to come to f6, knight to c3. And you can have something that might kind of transpose into like a Najdorf type of situation. You know, there's all different kinds of options. So we have bishop to g5, and we have e6. And as crazy as it sounds, as of 1976, this is the novelty of the game. It seems so natural because you're going to go e6 and you're going to be trying to push bishop on e7. And then you just pretty much have the ability to kind of develop your pieces and things like that, get castled. But magically enough, 1976, this is the first time this is seen. And special note, Anatoly Karpov became the world champion in 1975. Kind of by default. It's not that he wasn't strong enough to be the world champion, but as a lot of you guys know, Bobby Fischer refused to show up and play the world championship in 1975 because all of his conditions weren't met. All you guys that know Bobby Fischer know that he was very demanding when it came to, you know, certain conditions and stuff that he wanted. A little high maintenance. But anyway, we have queen to d2. We have a6. We got castles by white. We have bishop to d7. We have f4, which is a very strong move because as you guys are familiar with opposite side castling, most likely you're going to see bishop to e7 and castles by black. So, you know, you're going to be looking at opposite side castling. So when you're doing that, you're going to be seeing a6. You're going to be seeing b5. You're going to usually be seeing b4. And then you're going to see the f pawn, the g pawn, the h pawn storming down the board. So you got to try to attack as quickly as possible on the wings here. So we see b5, as I said. We have queen down to e1. Now, I will say queen to e1 is actually kind of very passive. What you really want to do in this situation, there are some nice little tactics involved here. So the best move was actually going to be bishop takes f6. And this kind of puts black, makes black choose between two moves. One is worse than the other, but they both can be kind of tricky. Now, so the most natural way you would want to try to take back would be actually queen taking, because then that wouldn't damage your structure. However, you actually have some nice tactics here after you push e5. The pawn takes e5, and then not knight takes c6, but knight d takes b5. And so the problem is you're setting up checkmate here on d7. So there's not really the greatest way to defend this. You're probably going to have to go something like queen to e7, but you're going to be losing the rook. And so it's just not the prettiest, this is not the prettiest situation to be in. So actually the best move is going to be to take with the g pawn. But as you can see, this pretty horribly damages your structure. It's not the end of the world, but you're going to be needing to move bishop here, castle here, try to push f5 to try to close down the situation as much as possible and not allow white to get their pieces involved in there. So, but like I said, we did see queen to e1. We see knight taking d4. We see rook taking d4. We got queen to b6, trying to be slick. We see rook to d2. We got bishop to e7, bishop to d3, and we have b4. So Torre just says, I'm going to go ahead and just go on the attack immediately. You know, nothing really wrong with it. Yeah, the king is in the center of the board, but, you know, you're like literally right about the castle. So it's not too horrible for you to be attacking this soon. You definitely don't want to attack when you have a whole bunch of pieces that you need to develop, but, you know, black is actually doing pretty well here. So knight comes down to d1. You see bishop to b5. This bishop is really strong holding this position together, so we want to get rid of it. So the knight comes to f2. We have h6. Bishop comes back to h4. We have g5. The pawn takes g5, pawn takes g5, and we have bishop to g3. Now, as I showed you guys before in many videos, you have to be very, very careful when you're trying to take pawns. And so that is not, this position is no exception. Because if we were to actually go into taking this pawn, we would see the queen sneak over to a5. And the problem is you're getting attacked here on a2. So if you waste the tempo, like doing something like this, you're going to be seeing a discovery on the bishop with bishop takes d3. Now this bishop is kind of in trouble. And there's not really a good way to defend it. It's pretty much impossible to defend it because you're just going to be down a piece. So we don't want to go into doing that. So, pawn taking g5, we go ahead and see bishop back down to g3. Knight comes to h5. And we see knight to g4. You know, this is there's actually in this position there's actually also queen to a5. We do see knight takes g3, which actually does pretty much give the advantage back to white. Well, not back to white, but it makes it fairly even. So the pawn takes g3, and we see rook takes h1, and then queen takes h1. But like I said before, you know, we did see a5 creeping into the position because we are having this threat of a2. So like I said, we have queen takes h1, we got rook to c8, we got king to b1, we have bishop takes d3, we got pawn takes d3, and we have queen to d4. So the queen comes to d1, we see a5, the knight comes to h2, we have g4, which this advantage is like severely crazy for black right now. You know, you have this rook on the open file, you have these pawns almost coming up here, you know, pretty much putting the king in a box, which is not where you want to be with your king. The knight takes g4, which is definitely definitely giving black a more severe advantage than they have now. The bishop comes to g5. Now you're kicking the rook around. So the rook comes to c2, the rook takes c2, king takes c2. And so we see a4, and as you can see, this king is starting to get kind of suffocated. So running through some moves, we have a3, b3 with check, king comes back down to b1, and as you can see, like I said, this king is kind of back rank mated a little bit if the queen can find its way down here by herself. So we see d5, pawn takes d5, queen takes d5, we see knight to f2, the queen takes on g2, we see knight to e4, the bishop comes to e3, we see knight to c3, and we see queen to c6. And this is as you can see, it's not very clear that black has a severe. Black is like insanely ahead right now. Like, I mean, they're starting to get to the point where like you really have to resign the game, because they just have such a clamp on the position spatially. As you can see, I mean, you know, these pawns are just really in the throat of white. It's just a really bad situation to be in. It's very cramped. So that's going to be the major issue that you have when you're looking at it, because I mean, you're kind of looking at it like, hey man, I got 4 pawns. He got 4 pawns. We got a knight. We got a bishop. Maybe he's a little bit better, but no, this is like completely like 100% winning. You know, you can probably get Magnus Carlsen or even Stockfish this position. They'll still lose it. That's how bad the situation is here. So we see d4 trying to get some type of counterplay. The queen comes to c4. We have d5, e5, not even giving, not even allowing him to trade. You know, that's just nasty. You know, you don't give your opponents anything. Like me, when I'm playing Bullet or I'm playing Blitz online, if you're losing and you keep wanting to play, I'll take all of your pieces away, like with zero type of like feelings whatsoever involved. So we have e5, like I said, queen comes to h1. We see queen to d3 with check. The king comes to a1. So as you can see, this king is really having some issues. They don't have the ability to go here or here. They're just like, they really want to be like over here or even way over here. Something like that, off the board. The bishop comes to d4, just adding the pressure. The queen comes to h8 with check. So you pretty much get into desperado mode. You have to start throwing checks, a bunch of checks in. The queen comes to a8. We got queen to f1. We have rook to b1. And this is actually the point in the game that I want you to actually stop the video. There is a mate in 5 present in the position for black, because knight to b1 is mating for black. And mostly the reason why is because this queen is like so far away from the action. But like I said, there is a mate in 5. If you want to stop the video and see if you can find the mate in 5, go ahead and do so real quick. All right, cool. So I think a majority of you probably would have been kind of like, you know, pondering this move here, queen takes b2, because it just seems like it forces the issue. And that's exactly what the move is. The start off to the mating sequence is bishop takes b2. The king is forced to take. There is no other move. And then after that, you'll see queen to f2. And you have 3 moves that mate in 1. And you have basically some just like, you know, throwing pieces away moves that postpone it just a little bit longer. So we have, of course, you have king back to a1. That's just mate. You have king down to c1, and that's just mate as well. You have king coming up, thinking maybe you're kind of getting into some air. That's going to be checkmate. The best thing to do is actually going to throw the knight. Just throw the knight in the way. And like I said before, you're throwing pieces in the way. This is not where you want to be at at all. But that's unfortunately where you're at. So the queen would be taken here, and it really doesn't matter too much what you do. You go down, you're going to be getting checked here, and then you're going to be getting checkmated. So that is actually a mate that Torre actually does miss, and I think he might catch it the second time around. But we see queen to c4, we see queen to b7 with check. We have king to d6, we got queen to b8, we got king to d5, we have queen to d8 with check, we have king to e6. We have queen to e8, we have king down to f5, we have queen to d7 with check, king to g6, we have queen to g4 with check, we have king to f6, we have knight to c3, and we see queen to f1 with check, and I think, like I said, he catches it the second time around. This is really, really bad. The best possible move is going to be knight back to b1, but you can actually be moving the queen to c1 here. And you're going to maybe throw a check in there with queen to f3. After the king goes to g7, you're going to be trying to defend here. But after king to f8, there really isn't anything you can do. If you do try to prevent f5 from coming, you might throw g4 in, but then queen to c3 just seals the deal, because there is no way now to prevent checkmate on b2. So that is unfortunately that game. Well, I mean, unfortunately for you know, Anatoly Karpov, and like I said, this was 1 year after he played his, he now basically became the world champion. So Eugene Torre just defeats a sitting world champion. So this is a pretty nice game. And as you guys know that are from the Philippines, Eugene Torre was the first Asian grandmaster in history. So kind of like Maurice Ashley there with that. But I appreciate everybody coming by. You know, Mabuhay. You know, Ingat Lagi, Magandang Umaga, Maraming Salamat. Let me see, is it? Yeah, Posad Nananud. Yeah, Ing a King Maga video. It's gonna take me a while to get that perfectly down, but I appreciate everybody coming by. Spasibo to you if you're from Russia, and I'll see you guys next time.